I want to say that, the New Age stuff also has its darkness. Everything does. The woke people, the New Age people. It's all balm. It's all let's have a balm. We've channeled everything, including healing, into this commerciality, into product. And consciousness has no bloody product. I mean, there is just no product in consciousness. It's the true life beyond our ancestral beliefs, and we need them, beyond the pillars of our religions, and we do need them, is one thing. The humanity, what do we need to keep ourselves in a state of balance? And it's one thing only: simplicity.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. Today, my guest is Maya Tiwari. She's a spiritual teacher and humanitarian whose life's work centers on awakening inner harmony and peaceful living. Maya was born in Guyana under British rule and moved to New York City as a teenager, where she studied acting and then later became a fashion designer, then turned toward a deeper spiritual calling. For more than 30 years, Maya has inspired global audiences through her books, teachings, and humanitarian outreach. Today we're going to be talking about her newest book, I Am Shakti, Reclaiming Women's Inner Power to Heal Themselves and Restore Balance, Health, Prosperity, and Joy for all beings. We're going to be talking a lot about the duality of things and the value in leading a simple life. So let's jump in. This is Maya Tiwari. I'm so glad you're here. We finally got this together, and it's exciting. We had some technical issues in the past, and now here we are. Internet has done us a big favor today. Nice to meet you.
Yes, of course, and thank you, Bob. It's very good to be on your show, and we do bless the internet when we need it. There's no doubt about that. And it's wonderful to have the conversation we're having when we're talking about my new book, I Am Shakti, which is about women's empowerment, but then we have to define what that empowerment truly is.
Exactly. And I was saying to you before we started recording that there was a saying that somebody said to me, or a thought, which is that men do what they want and women do everything else. And we're not saying that's a good or bad thing.
And yet when we had the matrilineal societies, as in India, South India, some of it still exists, it's not about gender, really. What it is about balance and redeveloping, inculcating that sense of non-separation, which for 300,000 years and more of the cabal rule and the patriarchal rule, which I really dived into seriously in this book. And the reason I did that is because we need to know our history, ladies and men. We do need to know our history because we can't just keep having balm, the New Age balm, on top of every trauma issue we have. It just doesn't work. The superficial is superficial. And so we need to dive in. But what is happening is the creative time, energetic time, where, as I said, we can have these interstellar visitors coming to us now openly in the clear because we are ready for the vaster knowledge of who we truly are as human beings on the earth with other species in different galaxies. What we need to understand is there's only one critical core that needs to be addressed in order for everything else to fall into place, its rightful place, its place of dharma, which is of value to humanity. And that is to start wiping out dualism, that sense of I am separate from you and you are separate. Yes, we all have different journeys, different purpose. We're all in different place. Some of us come in with the karma of being extremely poor and struggling. Some of us come in with the karma of being extremely wealthy and struggling. We're all struggling. at every level, there is a price to be borne, because we are working toward one thing only, not fashion, not the best holistic healing, not the best organic food product out there. The thing we're working towards is one thing only: human consciousness, the consciousness of our universe, of our self-awareness.
Well, that's quite beautiful. I think that is certainly a worthy goal of humanity, and I always wonder how many people even think about that. As I move through the world, it doesn't come. It comes up a lot in when I doing this podcast and being in yoga classes that I go to. There's a lot of people that are interested in these things, so I've gravitated toward these kinds of things. I've always read spiritual books. I meditate. I'm somebody that cares about this thing, but I think there's a bit of unawareness, or maybe it's even a chosen kind of way to move through the world, because it's there's, like you were saying, we all struggle, and sometimes the struggle and the dailies make people so not in tune with that part of it, and it's almost like an afterthought at best. Maybe it's reserved for a Sunday church service, if that. And so I wonder how, as a species, human beings can integrate that. I mean, it seems like that it used to be more that way, that cultures and societies came from this idea of a universal intelligence and moved out from there. And now it seems like it's the opposite. It's like I said, it's kind of almost like an afterthought for a lot of folks.
Well, I think there has been, this is not a conversation that is light in terms of holistic discussions and work. And I want to say that, the New Age stuff also has its darkness. Everything does. The woke people, the New Age people, it's all balm. It's all, let's have a balm. We've channeled everything, including healing, into this commerciality, into product. And consciousness has no bloody product. I mean, there is just no product in consciousness. It's the true life beyond our ancestral beliefs, and we need them, beyond the pillars of our religions, and we do need them, is one thing: the humanity. What do we need to keep ourselves in a state of balance? And it's one thing only: simplicity. Keep making your life simpler. We are brought to our knees and then we blame God. I mean, the fact is that that's usually the place where we can learn best, when we are struggling. And I know this for a fact because I have had a life of walking on broken shards for a very, very long time, as far back as I can remember. Ovarian cancer at the age of 18, when I was at the height of being a fashion designer that claimed to be much older than I was. And then I got struck down, and I had beautiful boutiques all over in most of the major stores in America, like I. Magnus, Neiman Marcus, whatever, and my own Madison Avenue boutique, and there I was down with it. But that redirected me back to the path, an ancestral path of great wisdom, really, in the Vedas, and returned to India. I wasn't brought up there. I was brought up in British Guyana, then British Guyana, now Guyana, a colony of the British Empire. And, went through the whole colonization routine as my parents and grandparents did. So, yes, getting back to the core of our conversation, women do carry the burden, because we have the aspect within us, not only for procreation and nurturance and always forgiving, but that is really on the broadest schema of the world, of the universe. It's called Shakti in Sanskrit. Shakti is the divine feminine energies, and we need to, as women and men, relearn what that is about. There is also the primordial masculine energy called Shiva in Sanskrit, and it is the balancing of both, not only within us, but also without us, meaning you are in the birth of a male person, I'm in the birth of a female person, and we can balance between us, but then within ourselves, there is that intricate balance of male-female as well, of masculine-feminine, I should say. This has very little to do what we're talking about, the gender discussions today, but it has to do with primordial energy form that needs to be brought into a state of balance. I don't want to take over the conversation completely and not allow you your questions, Bob, but it's just so vast. And we've got to come to a starting point that is simpler for everybody. A simple awareness of, okay, what are we to do here?
When I meet people that are sort of dogmatic about one aspect of things without being aware of maybe the irony and the duality of everything, I find that to be that creates divide to me. Like when I think about, here's a simple thing: an idea of a man being vulnerable is seen as weakness. The idea of a woman being
aggressive
is considered
not condoned.
It's considered obnoxious or almost and a threat. I notice that my wife is a very strong person, and I would not call her aggressive. I would call her confident and very in her body and in her mind and in her spirit. And I see, and particularly in her work, that men are threatened by it, and almost, she'll come home from something and tell me how some guy talked down to her. She goes, I had to nail him. I had to put him in his place. I didn't want to, but I had to. I see it all the time. Or like there's times when you'll be with, there'll be two men talking, and the men will only talk to the man, and the woman will be standing there as if she doesn't, mean as much.
Yeah, she's the placeholder. And the thing is this: it's not just about men being intimidated by strong women, by balanced strong women. It is also about women being intimidated by strong, balanced women.
Yeah.
Because if you don't fit the mold, whatever that mold is, when we're talking about women empowerment in the word Shakti, the content of this book and the context of it, Bob, we're not talking about women taking over men's roles. We're not talking about the patriarchal model that women are striving to get to the top of, because it's equally as obnoxious as the male patriarchal model that got to the top of everything.
Yeah.
We are talking about women going back to the simplicity of their own configuration, the way that they've been calibrated, the way that they were downloaded from the universal womb, that Hiranyagarbha, that golden womb of our creation. And we came in not just to give birth to children, although that is a functional role of all the female species, all the female of all species. But it comes with a Shaktified power, the power to heal, the power to nurture, the power to be at one with everything. And that is what women need to reclaim. But how? Okay, in this messy field, mired with the garbage of modern thought, so to speak. I'm sorry, not all modern thought is garbage, but this field that is mired with modern science, where everything has to be compared to or be accepted by modern science, which, as we saw, was so limited when 3i Atlas decided to appear. Okay, we are so arrogant in what we believe our scientific modern medical sciences or phenomenal modern science. Yet we have had cultures, and not just the ancient Vedic cultures, but Samaritan and so many others, so many worlds before us that dissolved and come back again, that have intelligence. It's called, not here on Earth, it's Earth's intelligence, but it's universal intelligence. How do we get that? It's not a question of acquiring anything, because fortunately we are told and understood, I have understood this from very young, but it could also be ancestral memory and embodied remembrance, that we have it all within us, the entire universe, the trillions of cells, the trillions of molecules, the DNA, that there's no junk DNA, they just don't understand what that is, but it is this we are the universe in each of us. There is a beautiful Sanskrit mantra at the first verse of the Isha Upanishad that says, Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishite. And basically what that is in Sanskrit is we are one, everything, the universe. And when we spill out of the universe, we still remain the entirety of one. That understanding is deeply within us, and it is really a shift in awareness. Thinking is okay because mind will follow whatever mind is following. We are not the mind, and we need to understand that very clearly. The mind is a reflection of so many things. We are the awareness that I am chit, I am awareness, that awareness. How do we get that back? So it's not like we go to Whole Foods and buy it, okay? And it's not going to be supplied by Amazon, and it's not going to be supplied by all of the trillions of ready to send you the stuff packaged, wrapped, and everything else. No, it's simply within us. That's why meditation is important. Sitting and contemplating is important because it's already there, but we just have to unearth it. And there are ways gurus can teach us. But, you know, we also have gurus that are terribly commercial. So who's our best guru? We also have that self-awareness within. I am my best guru when it comes to the simplicity of understanding my nature.
The idea of simplicity is also something that a lot of people don't either embrace, understand, or even want. There is certainly here in, I don't know the whole world. I've only lived in the United States. I've traveled, but I don't know how other people really see things exactly. This idea of gaining material wealth or even status in some way or even fame, all these things that we strive for is empty in the end. You know, it's like, it's okay, but it's not, but it doesn't really fix any kind of inner disturbance.
It's all, we bought into all the distractions in the world, everything look, I love America. It gave me so many opportunities no other culture, including my own India, Guyana, would have given. At the same time, we have the other side of that culture, and that is propagating a whole bunch of unnecessary distractions to keep the mind completely idle and completely affixed to the elitism aspect of the duality. So we have the poverty aspect and we have the elitism aspect. Everyone wants, of course, not poverty, but elitism. It doesn't work. There has been an agenda on earth that is the agenda that I talked about a lot in this book, only to compare how we ended up getting entrapped in this miasma of amnesia, so to speak, of our true nature. And that is believe it or not, the modus operandum of a very few selected bunch of people they call the cabals. I mean, it is an agenda that is continually engineered into our lives, and we need to be aware of this. We have to become aware of it. We're not blaming anyone. One of the things that in I'm Shakti that I talk about, of course, Shakti being the divine feminine primordial power force that powers all of life, the seed, the egg, the tree, the forest, the ocean, children, everything, is that there has been in the issue of authority in those who govern and seek the kind of authority that has given us a real schizoid existence here, that need to control the Shakti power, that power that is alive only in women. It's in all of us. It's in every creature on earth and in the universe, but it is in its most awakened state in the woman. And the idea here is the fear of that power. That is what has been the running engine behind what has happened in our societies, the divisionism, the separationism, the duality. It's not just dichotomy and paradox. That's a good reality, but I'm talking about extreme extremities. I'm talking about extreme divisions, extreme separation. We're separated from ourselves, and we're placed in this vulnerable state of separation by always being implanted with the ideas of what we need to be happy, what we need to be joyous, and we have so many millions and trillions of practices for health, Bob. who is going to have any inner time to locate awareness?
What do you think the fear of all that comes from? I mean, how did we get to this place where this kind of, particularly that type of power, is a threat and people are afraid of it? I'm just wondering what happened to us that's, and I know that there's a this is, I don't know what made me think of this, but I know there's a number of men that feel, and I can't even say that I'm not one of them. Like, you're given so many messages, like, what does it actually mean to be a man? What does it actually mean to be a woman? And how are you supposed to behave when maybe your instincts aren't what you're being told? Either way, there seems to be sort of a confusion, and I'm not even necessarily, I guess I am talking about gender differences, but the way you're supposed to, the way you're expected or taught to move through the world might not line up with what's going on inside.
The book I'm Shakti, one of the reasons I believe it is one of the more important books for human empowerment, not just women empowerment, but because women are the balancing force of our nations, all of it, of all of our traditions, have always been, always will be. And so basically, they are at the center of I Am Shakti. But this book also concentrates a great deal on the masculine primordial energies and what that is about. If we take the example of Shiva Shakti, Shiva in the Vedic tradition is the empowering, all-empowering consciousness. Shakti becomes the power when she is manifested from that complete consciousness. In the manifested state, this power becomes Shakti. So the male primordial is the stable, absolutely immutable, undifferentiated awareness from which the manifestation comes and it becomes Shaktified. That is the Shakti energy that gives birth. So it's not complex, but going into Vedanta, it takes us off track here. What I want to say here is that men have to reclaim their primordial power of the masculine primordial, what's inside of them, what has been calibrated there for trillions of eons, what has made us who we are. We came into that shape and into that form, and in a way that directs and guides. But when societal laws and rules and containment fly strictly against what that primordial energy is about, of course, there's a state of uncertainty all the time, a state of being sort of fumbled and stumbled and muzzled. So we can't take all of the appendages, because there are trillions of them, and start working with each one of them. We'll run out of time, we'll get tired, we die. There is the spider and the web, which is a famous example in Vedanta. And the spider, from itself, the web comes out. It spins it out of its own cocoon, that web. We are the spider. We are the web of consciousness. It comes from inside of us. There's no separation. But once the web is out there, it seems like it's separate from the spider. And that example is very potent, because we begin to understand that everything unfurls from within the self, each one of us, regardless of our economic, spiritual, or other states. Each human person is a phenomenal, magnificent gift in the universe. And one of the reasons that we have the duality there, the forces of dark and the forces of light, is simply to hone awareness. That's all. When the ship came in, and I keep going back to the interstellar thing because it just happened, and I was totally at point with it, really. I felt the surge of energy that was for the betterment of my own consciousness. And what I'm saying is that we have to accept that within us are all of the vasanas or latent tendencies that has ever existed in the universe, light and dark both. A good point to start inculcating who we truly are is to accept that we are both light and we are both dark. That's the combination of nature. There's night, there is day. It's seamlessly synced together. We cannot separate it. We can't only go for things that look like it belongs to the light and then shove into the shadows everything that belongs into the dark. It's a good starting point in a meditation to understand that. The spider and the web is a wonderful example of the awareness that is always within us, that never dies, completely, ineffably, immutably ours. It no matter what our cultures and traditions have done to incarcerate us and to incarcerate the humanity within the humanity of human beings, it is still completely flawless. We need to trust that.
Yeah, I'm always a little suspect of people that only go for one aspect, like, go for the light, and they get upset if they see something or perceive something as being from the dark side, and the vice versa. It's not one way or the other. And I think that's maybe the sort of inherent struggle in being a human being, is those two forces or energies are always there. And this idea of having to pick one as being better or worse or more accurate than the other one, that you get a little twisted up and you're out of balance, and then you don't feel good. That's really what happens.
And there is no heaven and no hell. Right? There is the practice, the path of challenges, and we're walking it. In every rebirth, we walk it. In every rebirth, we walk it. This is not a piece of cake. And the cakewalk is not what they promised us. And we just have to know this duality of good and bad, right and wrong, the light and the dark, the poverty and the wealth, and then the profane and the righteous. I mean, it's all there, but we have to stop playing into the duality of it all. And I know when I was walking in robes in the Vedic tradition as one of the first women given the robe as a monk, as in the Veda Vyasa lineage. And then I shed that robe in 2010 because I came to understand that the world doesn't need another robe person to help them, that it creates a distance, a separatism from those we are trying to serve, and that you'll never hear the truth again in your entire life while you're in Orange. And when I first moved to Asheville, North Carolina, I tell you this little story. It was the first time I had gone into these beautiful mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountain, we have the Appalachian Trail, we have the Smoky Mountains. It's just exquisite. And I needed land so I can have a teaching landscape for Ayurveda. I started the first school for Ayurveda, which is the holistic medicine system out of India, in North America, and that was in 1981. And as the taxi driver was driving me into this beautiful valley called Pisgah Valley, I saw all of these men in orange on the side of the road, cleaning up and doing certain things there. And I thought, oh my God, there must be a monastery out here. I wonder if it's a Hindu monastery or a Buddhist monastery. Turned out they're inmates from the prison that allowed them to be in the street and clean up. So orange can mean many things depending on which culture you're in.
Yeah. To me, the thing about being human is there's a certain, even when I'm in a great place, there's still a certain agitation at being alive, a certain restlessness that seems to, and believe me, I've been in great places internally and felt just completely content and peaceful. Not a lot, but it's happened. But there's still a part of me that's even in that knowing that the other thing is going to happen again, and maybe it seems like I have to work harder and be more diligent and mindful to get to the peaceful place than the sort of agitated place. But there's a certain uncomfortableness to being a human being, and I'm not saying that's even a bad thing, because I think it's a motivator to want to expand in some way.
No, the way that you put it is true. We are always anticipating, and it's there, but it's not that hard to fall into silence that serves. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I've been given a life that I would not trade for anything else, anyone else's in the world. And yet it was one of the most difficult in terms of struggle, pain, suffering. Not only from surviving cancer after 5 years, and not only from being targeted for now 14 years as an individual, but very brutal, inhumane things.
Can you talk about being targeted for just a second?
Yeah, that's a subject that doesn't help women really, because I tell you why. What helps them is the lesson that we learn from it, not from the actual exploitation of the female body, mind, and spirit.
How were you targeted? What does that mean exactly?
Targeted means that there are groups of people that set out gaslighting and poisoning and breaking into your home and infiltrating your sacred spaces and doing whatever they are told to do. Why? The big question is, for those, I would imagine, I put myself in that very auspicious place with those who don't fit the norm.
Yeah.
That those whose work challenge something of the status quo.
Okay, so you're a threat in some way.
I'm a threat. The mind is problem. My mind it's always been the Vedic mind, and it is when you have been brought up by the strategies of colonialism, and then you have a Vedic mind and you're colonized and whatever, you become the combination that can see both ends of the light and the dark, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can articulate it very well indeed. So basically, there is a threat. And I'm laughing about it because I tell you, it's not the path that many would choose. And this chosen thing, this idea that we choose, I think we do sign up, our souls sign up for what is the fastest way I can get to the end of consciousness. And being an impatient soul that I know I've always been, the one that anticipates, impatient. Yes, and there's that whiz, that energy, what did you call it? Like an agitation. Yeah. It is a divine agitation, by the way, is what you're talking about. There's always been that. So I'm sure my soul signed up for the hardest possible path in this life. Although my mind constantly battled it and said, who on earth would choose something like this? Okay, so that isn't not the learning curve for my beautiful women that are listening. The learning curve here is, what do we learn from challenges, whatever the depth and width of them may be, what are we learning from it? Because we are never, and this is anchored in the most amazing faith, not just as Hindu, as Vedanta, as an ex-monk or whatever, but the faith, the absolute faith that we are always being pulled towards consciousness, whether we are dragged through it, whether we are stripped to get to it, whether we are brought to the knees and to the belly to do it. That's where we're going. That's the forward movement. That will never cease. That's just universal love.
And then that eventually ends when we die, and then we come back and do it again, it seems like.
Yeah, it doesn't end. It never ends. It's a fluent, seamless journey. We just have to take longer breathing spaces, and death is one of them, right? We're given it the absolute universal choice at the time of death. Okay, did you sign up for way more than you can handle?
Yeah.
And now let's get back to the round table here and see what would be a gentler path for you. You're going to need another few centuries to get over the last one. So here, with the trillions of lives that we take, we got some lives over here that would be very gentle, very noble. You can be a farmer. You can go out and, get out of the world of stress. You can be a, reverend. You can do whatever. Everybody has stress. I'm making fun of it because we need to look at life in a much lighter lens. And I've always had a sharp sense of humor, Bob, but nothing as sharp as when I had to walk through the shards on barefoot to truly develop something very simple. In my case, my life is not that usual, but there are many of us, which is, are you going to presume that you have the answer for everything? Are you going to use your massive impatient self to boot through, and bulldoze down through this challenge? And there is another option, which is the obvious one, which we always miss. And what do you think that one is? Surrender.
Oh, yes. Okay. That's where you're going. Okay. Yeah. It's just, well, you're surrendering and you're accepting what is. And then now where do I
Yeah,
go?
I remember when I was wearing the orange robes and teaching, and I trained so many hundreds of practitioners in Ayurveda at my beautiful nonprofit school out there in Asheville and around the world. And I have an impatience. I've always had it. It's a divine agitation. It's impatient. I came from a tradition that doesn't really tolerate stupidity very easily. And so basically, it wasn't so much ego, but it's that intolerance of what kind of stupid question are you going to ask me next, right? Kind of thing. And I was much younger. And I remember how shocked and offended my female participants, and some of them are medical doctors, they're all in health and want to be trained. And I was always surprised at how shocked they are when I lost my cool.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to lose your cool. They put you on a pedestal and they kick the pedestal down from under you because you showed some part of your real old nature, which is the same loving nature, and then you can get upset and then be impatient and then give a harsh word now and then. And so I drank so much raspberry tea and lemon balm tea in those years that I never want to see lemon balm tea and raspberry tea again, because those two teas actually helped me to keep my cool and moderate from a place of expectation rather than a place of my own nature. And the place of expectation is you wear the robe, you've got to be cool, you cannot lose your cool, you cannot lose your temper, you've got to be this person that is imagined through the imaginings of those who come to learn.
That's an interesting idea, because you do get people, certainly when they're in public, they're playing a character. They're playing it for other people, but they're also playing it for themselves. We'll just pick, I'm a spiritual teacher, therefore I have to act this way all the time. Or I've failed, or even on an ego sense, I'm going to be perceived in a way that I don't want to be perceived, because it's not evolved enough for the people that are interested in listening to me. So there is that aspect. I think we all have a certain amount of characters we play in various situations, and when we're alone sometimes. But those moments by yourself, and maybe you're not playing a character in that moment. Those are sort of interesting feelings of, there's nobody here. I don't have to appear a certain way. I don't even have to appear a certain way to myself. What is that person? Who is that? What is going on in those moments? How do I actually feel when all that artifice is stripped away? It's a really sort of beautiful, and it's kind of scary place at the same time.
It's very raw. Yeah. But it's one of the most beautiful spaces. I've taken so much time for silence. I now speak eloquently to myself. I enjoy speaking to myself eloquently and caution myself sometimes when the mind goes over there. That is the most difficult thing that we have to do as humans, is to retrain, recalibrate our minds, not to follow the tendencies of our ancestors, but really to be untethered from it. And that is humanity's most difficult appendage to bear, is the mind, because our mind is fashioned by those who have come before us. And we're talking about timeless eons of ancestry. And of course, there are good vasanas, good tendencies as well. And those good tendencies, but then we can relearn from what? Which teacher are we going to relearn from? The ones that are collecting massive amounts of wealth, the ones that are part of the cabals, the one that are... No, I love them all, and not every individual is corrupted by their organization. But let me put it this way. We do have a guru within us, and it is the most incredible, most loving, most beneficent, most I am here at your service guru. And that is called our own self-awareness. Trust that. We can call intuition, women's this, women's that, but it's way beyond that. It's the largest, the gift that we have as a human person. If we're stripped of everything else, we're never stripped of that. And that's why in communities that I served through the Mother O Mission for many, many years in inner cities of New York and Guyana, where there was no form of any medical care or medicine care. And I took in Ayurveda, holistic medicine, to these communities and, and worked with people who had manifold layers of disadvantages and pathological strains in their lives. One family would have AIDS plus the husband is beating the wife and the children are, all sorts of things happening in it. And by the same token, it was just a matter of years before we saw so many brilliant changes, play yoga for the children, the men behaving better in their marital life, children getting out of drugs. I mean, the thing is this. It's not just about serving with love. You serve to awaken that awareness that's already in the other person, because there is, as Ramana Maharishi says, there is no other. I think my heart grew so large, and my compassion, even from my impatience, my compassion became something I can't even fathom, because those people that allowed me to serve them grew that heart. They grew my mind. They grew my compassion. They grew me into myself. Or else, how else could I withstand the burdens of being challenged by huge numbers of operators that are really ex-military, ex-this, ex-that, and completely organized? How else can you escape that? Of course, the answer is, of course, there is a larger destiny, a larger divinity, the greater Shakti that protects us all. We just have to kind of find the doorway inside of ourselves to that place. And with all the knowledge that I have and lived experiences, Bob, I'm still trying to do the absolute surrender, because it hasn't happened completely as yet. It's there. I have surrendered in quantum leaps, but it's still not the complete surrender. And I know that as a human being, and I'm being kind to myself through that, because we're given this brilliance, this willpower, which works against us most of the time, but sometimes it can work for us. And we cannot annihilate the willpower. We cannot annihilate the ego, because these are some of the rudders with which we were reeved in order to put consciousness there in ourselves, take it from in ourselves and put it out there. And so we've got to be gentle with all of the processes, like being gentle when we are ill, when we're diagnosed with cancer or diagnosed with an impossible disease, heart disease. We've got to start culling this gentleness, this awareness that I am so complete and whole in myself that it's just taking me a while to find my way.
It's really like trying to find some kind of a freedom from basic instincts. Like we have these basic survival instincts that we come in with. And a lot of that is, you do need your will and you need your ego to survive on a material level for sure.
Yeah.
But then they get out of whack. They become so they become at the forefront at the price of not having the other part of yourself. And it seems like it's I'm going to say it's a joke. It's a little bit of a challenging, I don't want to say cruel joke, but it's a challenging joke that you come in a certain way and you have to overcome the thing, the menu that you've been handed in a lot of ways. It's like, well, I want, and the thing I want is going to consume me in a way where it's going to hurt me if I want too much. There's that, what's that saying? I think it's a Buddhist saying, all suffering begins with wanting. Not to say you can't want, it's just what is the price of that want, and what happens to you if you are unsatisfiable in wanting. That's really that's probably one of the biggest things is just having that mind that says, well, that was good, but it's not enough. I need more of that because it felt really good. I need more. I need more. I need more. And then
because with the distraction comes the dopamine fix, right? All of it, we're drugged. I mean, the world is drugged by all the electronic dopamine that we're given and everything else, and so we can have the pleasure of this and the pleasure of that, and then start pushing the pain farther into the recesses. But one thing we know, we change thought at a time. What happens in ancestry that have been uprooted and taken elsewhere, as in my case, is the survival mechanism works much stronger, and you're much more equipped with survivalism because it's in your ancestral bedrock here. And so when I first started getting targeted, and it becomes so unclear as to what's going on because it's bizarre. It's like a multi-pronged attack that's coming in from whatever. One of the things I've always known about myself is I'm extremely strong-minded and extremely strong-willed. And I also know from my training, which has been ancestral training, my father, my lineage was the lineage that came from 3 Vedas. So there were scholars in the maternal side were farmers. That I trust my mind. I know who I am in that sense of the mind. But it knocked me out for 5 years before figuring out the patterns, the system, and exactly what was floating around me at all times, and the reason behind it, and how it's done, and why it's done. And all of that was those 5 years, Bob, where I was just in the dark. I was in a rabbit hole in the dark, just plunging my way through it best I can, because I always move head first, but here I couldn't even move feet first. It's such a tight, dark space. But what happened when I started coming out of it, because I began to understand the patterns and whatever that was happening around me and unfolding around me, my mind was very much intact. In fact, it became even more alert. We can say hyper alert, but then I had to bear through that as well. But what I'm trying to say is that it was the darkness, that incredible. When I had cancer, and there was another 5-year journey there through it, with many surgeries and chemotherapy, radiation, and given up for like 6 months to live and all of that. And I retreated into this incredible winter welkin of Vermont in the middle of snow time, when you could see skiers and the air is so fresh and the oxygen is so predominant. I was there just to die, and then I ended up living. And that was the golden grace of the divine. But those were different 5 years. They were sad, and there was lots of tears. But in 5 years of being targeted, it took me 5 years to figure it out, is what I'm saying, to truly figure out what's going on. That was a different kind of darkness. I was then much older. The targeting started when I turned 60 years old. And that's a difficult time to start getting bent, because basically you're already getting bent by the natural progression of your years. And so, long story short, I understood that this time around, it wasn't that divine grace was less, it was the lesson was so deep and so irretractable, in that I could not back out of any of the lesson. And death wasn't an option either, that I was going to get through it. It was so harsh. But I came out understanding so much about the tendencies that I carried through the ancestry. The tendencies that have become so clear that I can now not only negotiate, but go through without really the fallback. And that is the light we gain from the dark tunnel. The dark tunnels in our life is where we learn the biggest lessons, the deepest lessons, the most profound, and yes, the biggest suffering as well, because you don't know what's going on.
Well, yeah, it's when you're in something like that, no matter what it is, it's almost impossible to see it as a gift. You won't see that until later, if you're lucky. And
absolutely. And I so resent when gurus and teachers and masters in the holistic field and Buddhist friends, whatever, say to people, a woman just got raped, and one Buddhist monk in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia, is saying to her in the audience, it was just 2 weeks ago that it happened to her. He's saying, oh, you have no idea what a great gift that is.
Yeah, I have an answer for that. It's two words.
I'm like, what on earth? I mean, how?
Yeah, what a compassionate guy. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. I certainly wouldn't have stuck around.
But what I'm saying is, yes, it's a big gift. Yeah, everybody's saying, oh, it is not happening.
It might not be. You don't really know.
Not exactly. It depends on how we're going to recover from this unholy thing. Right. And so basically, it's like everyone in the New Age field going, oh, yes, it's not happening to you. It's happening for you. I mean, look, we've got to stop the elitist nonsense, because basically, those who call themselves conscious are there creating a bigger ground for elitism, whereas you're the only one who can afford to shop for the holistic food and the holistic this and the holistic that. And you have all sorts of, 2,000 apparati to do a simple yoga move, which was so simple when you could stand barefoot on the earth and do it. Why do we need all these props? We have built upon ourselves something, and we call ourselves conscious in this, what is called woke community or New Age community. None of it makes any sense, because until food for one is food for all, until the access to what we need to bring our awareness to the fore is accessible to every soul on earth, we are not making any major strides here.
People can get an ego about having arrived at some certain spiritual destination, which there is kind of none of that.
We're not deriding meditation. It is important, because that's where we can cull and garner stillness that shows us things. And then if we know that we are not the mind, thoughts will happen. You cannot control the river. You're walking by a river. Do we step into the river and start, no, push it back. It's going too fast. No, you can't. Same thing with your mind. You can't control it. It's useless to try even to control it. But what can we do? You observe it. And let's say the mind is saying your neighbor is doing this and your neighbor is doing that. And maybe the neighbor is doing this and doing that. Okay, great. So I've observed that the neighbor is doing this. But when you start calling the neighbor a name and giving a name and then we have gone beyond observing the neighbor is doing this into the neighbor is now that, And so that's where we must make the catch. The truth is the neighbor is doing this. That's a reality. Okay, fine, let it go. Cannot control that. Not then giving names to the neighbor. That is when you're trying to control thoughts. Then you build on thoughts, and you and thoughts become a big muddied hill that slides down the side on the PS whatever highway there in California. You pretty much cannot do that. That's all we have to do.
Yeah,
we have to not take charge of the mind. We cannot control it. But what we can do in observing it is not playing into it. It's not building up its momentum into an opera.
I'm glad you brought up the idea of my neighbor is doing something, because I think almost everyone I've ever met has an issue with a neighbor. It's it's including myself, with multiple people that they're not doing it the right way, which means they're an asshole, basically, is the simple version. And I can't believe it. They're slighting me. They're unaware. They're stupid. They're selfish. And now I got the labels going. Now I'm picking out other examples. I'm a lawyer. I'm building a case against this person. I'm dismissing them as not as valid as me, not as evolved, not as smart. Then I might say, oh, well, I really need to have some understanding of who they are and why they're like this, but then that only lasts for half a second.
Half a second, and then after you become
I don't like them again.
You become the defense lawyer, then you become the magistrate too. I mean, then you start judging,
Yeah.
There is that name that you pinpointed. I leave things open, but I also I no longer, one of the things that happen in societies that are built on survivalism is you are always wanting to make peace and please the other. right? That's part of survivalism. It's
Yeah.
part of every ethnic culture you can possibly, and we're all ethnic people. We all come from native roots. So basically, it depends on how far away along, how many generations later are you from the ethnicity, or how close are you to the roots? And so, yeah, I don't anymore engage, because when I'm saying neighbors are doing things, they are doing, and there's some very damaging things, but I don't engage, but I also don't give a lot of wordology to what they're doing, and I don't come to an assessment, and I don't come to a conclusion. I hold grace, because it's the least we can do when you walk through the hell and back, is to hold grace for everybody.
Yeah.
We have to. And one of the things that intelligent minds do, and my tradition is extremely guilty of it, and that is, you don't even know that you're judging or sort of, minimizing something, or because it is what it is. I mean, is catching that, is understanding if there is no other, you've come out of this incredible depths of the mire, depths of the dark space. And if we can't come out of that, when we come out of it alive, so many changes happen, so much awareness. I never really can say I'm a humble person, but you see things very differently. You see things very differently. And that's our humanity. And that alone, Bob, that gift alone of realizing that for yourself and others, when in the company of very destructive stuff, if you can be that way in that set of circumstance, you really just need to be proud of how far you've come.
That's a beautiful way to end the show. Plus, it's time to do that.
I know we didn't talk a thing about the practices for women, but please, beautiful women and men out there, get the book, I'm Shakti, because it does unfold so much of the history that has put us in the junky space that we're in right now, and ways that it will trigger your own intelligence to get out of, and to get the most out of this incredible work. And Bob, thank you so much. It's been quite an amazing conversation, and thanks for allowing me to join you.
Well, I feel the same way about you. What a wonderful treat to start my day here in California, talking to you across the country through the magic of the internet. Thank you so much.
Surely.
Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. There's also a YouTube channel where you can listen. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Once again, I want to thank Maya Tiwari for being on the program, and check out her new book, I Am Shakti. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.